All right. Moving right along. So they got the idea of car horns and some walkie-talkies. The members of the security committee all slapped their heads when Mark told them of Rodney's horn idea. Then they were speechless when Mark showed them the radios and batteries. Mark also informed Gunny that Rodney had volunteered to help with security. Gunny told the committee that he now had 47 more people who had volunteered for guard duty. 18 of them were women. Mark asked if Susan had given any thought to their discussion from last night. She told the men that while she thought the possibility of any of the women not taking their duties seriously was remote, she felt that any mixed groups should have at least 2 members from each sex. That meant smaller groups than 4 would have to be the same sex. The men agreed that probably would remove any possibility, almost any possibility of accusations from spouses of the guards. Gunny conceded that women would be allowed to man any post except for one. He felt the team on the gate should be men only. Susan felt he was being chauvinistic and said so. Gunny explained that some of the refugees might feel they could push the women around more than men. Gunny agreed those men would be wrong, especially if Susan was on duty, he said with a wry smile. But the fact remained, he stressed, that women would not be able to deter a belligerent bully as well as a man could. After they discussed it for a while, a vote was taken and Susan lost that one battle. She did get the men to agree to revisit this policy in a month or 2. She also asked that the women be mixed in with the men for training and that no special allowances be made for them. If a woman couldn't cut it just like the men, then they should be released from guard duty. Gunny said with all the people they had now, he figured they could go to 6-hour shifts and work 4 days on and 2 off. If they could get a few more people, then he could go to 4 on, 3 off, which was the schedule he preferred. He also wanted to appoint a captain for each guard shift called Alpha through Delta. He wanted anyone wanting to switch teams to have to okay it with him. If they wanted to trade days off with one of their team members, then they could clear it with the captains. Shapiro asked if he had anyone in mind for the captains. Gunny wanted Scott for Alpha shift, Charlie for Beta, Charlie for Charlie shift, no, Charlie for Beta, Jim for Charlie shift, and Mark for Delta. Mark briefly argued that he didn't want to do it, but Gunny insisted that all of his picks were based on the person's proven ability to think on their feet and the fact that they were all respected by the men. And the women, Susan added with a wink. The old jarhead then told his fellow committee members that he wanted to set up the training schedule where each guard trained with his group 1 to 2 hours 4 times a week. The all-day classes were just too hard to schedule everyone for. The 2 classes would be with Gunny, one with Jim on marksmanship and one with Mark on unarmed self-defense and hand-to-hand combat. He told Mark that meant he'd need to teach 4 classes a week. Mark asked how long he'd need to teach. Gunny just smiled as he answered, "Until they know everything you know, Karate Man." The committee voted to accept Gunny's new schedule until he had enough men to improve it. Shapiro informed the group he still needed more angle iron for the remaining guard towers. He wanted to be added to one of the night shifts. That would let him do the welding and such that he needed to be done during the day. With the meeting over and security measures really starting to take form, Mark headed home. When he got there, he found there had been enough water saved for him to have a quick shower. Afterwards, the adults visited for a while, mostly getting to know Rodney and Donna a little better. Mark asked Rodney if he would hook up the horn at the command post like he suggested. The man was happy to help out. Mark also explained to Rodney about John and how things had gotten so bad. Before he could finish, Lisa asked if anyone else heard John's wife reading him the riot act after the meeting. No one had, and Lisa told them about it. It seemed Mrs. Olson was not too happy with the way her husband was acting. She told him he needed to shape up and pitch in or else. Lisa said she didn't say what the or else meant, but it didn't sound good. Mark asked how John reacted. Lisa said he was mad at first, but by the time she finished, he was hanging his head and saying, "Yes, dear." Mark hoped that perhaps she had been able to get through to him. Since he had to get up at 1:30 to report for Delta shift, Mark excused himself and went to bed. He hated the shift he was on. It was the coolest part of the day and the time when one could sleep the most comfortably. But he knew Gunny had given him this shift for all the right reasons. If he got the easy shift, people would cry favoritism. When the alarm went off, Mark was amazed at how fast he'd gone to sleep. He almost didn't remember laying down. He got dressed and reported to the command post at 1:53 a.m. It was dead calm and very humid. Mark hoped the front would get here quickly. Scott was just coming off duty and told Mark that Gunny had moved him to the 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift starting day after tomorrow. Mark had different men assigned to his crew tonight, and they were given one of the FRS radios by the command post sentry. Mark and his crew started their rounds. It started raining softly a few minutes later. Mark and his men went by their houses one at a time to pick up their rain gear. The shift again went without a hitch. It was miserable being in the rain, maybe even more uncomfortable than the heat had been. Oh well, he thought, it was a dirty job, but somebody had to do it. As he was walking home from his shift, he noticed the water dripping out of the gutter spouts at the houses. Shouldn't they be catching that rainwater? He made a detour by Chaparro's. If anyone could do it, it was the plumber. He told Mark he would work on it. Mark went home, dried off, put on some clean, dry pajamas. He crawled into his bed in the house. He was just about to doze off when he felt a warm body slip into bed beside him. The sound of the rain on the roof and the feel of his wife beside him almost made it seem as if everything was normal. If only for the moment.